what kinds of lessons do they learn that they're not necessarily learning in school? Well, that's huge, and that's something that I'm really finding very, very interesting, because you can get just invaluable lessons of science, biology, just by looking at a garden. And we did that. We did that in the garden this summer. Tim Barr out of Texas Lutheran University came and spent a couple of days out of those 2 weeks talking about bugs, and then we went out and looked for them ourselves. We used nets and caught some and just kind of observed what was going on. That was another thing that happened as a result of the garden being there. You get a camp, link up with the garden, and you say, well, okay, what can we teach these kids? Well, we've got super qualified folks in our community that can come in and teach their kids. Yeah, they're PhDs, but I guarantee those kids got so much out of that. And you wouldn't necessarily think. These are college professors, retired college professors, they won't be able to get down to the level, of like a kid and explain it to where they understand it. You better believe they understood what was going on. And just to have that connection was just incredible. It became a classroom. It was a gym. It was a laboratory. Learning things and teaching things that they just don't get in schools. And something that I learned about myself this semester, or this summer, is that is something that I really want to work hard on, is how do I create curriculum revolving around food that I know they're not going to get in school? And where can I absolutely offer that? Summer camps like this, right? Seguin services. These community organizations, link up with them. The high points for me this summer, I didn't even realize it was 10 weeks. I couldn't have told you that it was 10 weeks. It's just been a great experience. Cristobal Sanchez, who was an AmeriCorps Vista worker for here at Teatro, basically came to me and said, how do you feel about teaching a garden class? I said, what are you talking about? Never done it. It sounds like something I should totally be for, just never done it before. Let's just give it a try. And like I said before, it totally worked. We pulled it off. The kids got so much out of it. And like I said, I just learned basically, kind of what I want to be doing for a very long time. So in that camp, I learned that there's potential for even more food-based curriculum. It's a new idea, but that excites me. Connecting food with bugs and science, those kinds of connections just doesn't happen in schools, unless I'm just super, super out of touch with being like a sixth grader. But, from my perspective, I feel like there's some potential for some really cool opportunities to make those connections and empower kids on these levels. And being able to see how our kids think about food is very important. The starting point for this art camp was, how am I supposed to know what kids know about food? Well, I don't. So let's ask those simple questions. What is food to them? They might tell me Doritos, or they might tell me a piece of raw okra. They might really like the piece of raw okra. A lot of the kids this summer totally loved raw okra. Could have fooled me. Had no idea. Same thing with, raw corn, that wasn't mature. They were sitting there shucking it, have a little corn kernel, loved it, Well, yeah, it is sweet corn, it's just not that mature, but the flavor is sweet. When food is ready versus not ready, there are multiple stories of kids coming to me and saying, look what I picked. Yeah, you picked a very, very baby something or other, tomato, or we have persimmons out there, which I've never even tasted. But I know that they gave me this little bulbous thing, and I knew that was not ready. But how are we supposed to know? That's the kind of education. It might not be a persimmon. How many of us eat persimmons? But even, kids might not even know when an apple is ready sometimes. The education of our kids pertaining to food issues is just not what it can be. The potential is there. Whether we want to rely on the schools for it, or if we want to take advantage of other opportunities that we have, like the potential partnerships I was speaking of, that's how we're going to do it, in my opinion. Seguin is, it's probably debatable in this room. It is a not necessarily totally rural area, not necessarily a totally urban area. What is it? Well, I'll tell you that whatever people classify it as, the way in which we get food is a lot more challenging than a lot of other cities. So that is something that can pertain to many cities where they look inside themselves and say, okay, our local food system is where we're going to have to go. We are going to have to grow our own food for ourselves, like out in our garden. Within that conversation of local food systems, though, you have things like food banks. So improving and aiding the local food banks. Like Ricardo mentioned, Pittsburgh, with just its size, we were serving 75 to 100 families in a given distribution. Pittsburgh serving anywhere from 500 to 800 in a 4-hour distribution. Their facilities are gigantic. They have the cold storage, as was being discussed. They've got those resources. Obviously, we're two totally different cities. Understood. But what can we do on our scale to model those things in terms of efficiency? If we put our heads together, there are ways. But turning the conversation to a local food system, I feel, is very important to that. Thinking about food in new ways, promoting unique relationships with food, and with that I really mean with the kids. Promoting sustainability in our communities, and the main highlight to me is just seeing the garden just catching up, for lack of a better. What you can do when things are ready, you can go out and harvest. You can come volunteer. I think on a couple of the sign-up sheets, I don't know if this has ever really been done, but we have a sign-up sheet. If you care to come and volunteer, please contact any of us that spoke today, or in the sign-up sheet if you want to leave a note that you're willing. Anything. I mean, this meeting can also serve as outreach too. We all need everyone's help. Telling your neighbor. You don't know how many conversations I've had with community members who are there because their neighbor told them this was here. Word of mouth is a great thing. For the record, that is open for business. It is open to you. Don't just drive by next time. Come in, see the progress, go home, tell your neighbor the progress. Let's start that cycle. I really got a lot out of just that, like those couple classes that I taught at Seguin. Not just because these kids are awesome, but because the youth is how this new idea about food is going to go anywhere. I know most of you are not familiar with my dad's work, but he sets up things called leadership teams. Okay, he works in a school district, and then he works to implement leadership teams. The issue that they talk about, that they brainstorm, they discuss, is different, but the approach can totally work. You create a leadership teams of kids that have just enough knowledge and interest in food, or just enough curiosity. If you can coax the kid, hey, you want to come and talk to us about food for an hour, you never know what's going to come out of that kid's mouth. They might have some super powerful stories about their family not having enough to eat on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You never know where that's going to go. That's how those leadership teams are formed. If the kid is that involved already in their personal life, harness that energy, because they have knowledge that you might not even. I grew up, semi-poor. That doesn't mean I know exactly what they're dealing with, and they can teach me anything. They can teach me anything. Kids can teach you anything. So, listening to them, forming those leadership teams, those partnerships, that's kind of what I'm going to work towards from now on. I want to thank you all very, very much. Have a great evening.
It was great.
Let's do this again. Keep this in mind. Keep your ears out. One of the things was getting the LULAC Community Garden Facebook site up and running. So, pay attention to that. I hope it continues. And thank you all for all of your respective support. Really
exercise indoor, and we could like throw up a.
So I mean, I don't know if it's like directly equivalent, but we could do like, well.